Careful with that, Bordeaux. One drop and you'd owe more than your salary. The words sliced through the velvet murmur of the Manhattan hotspot, smug and loud enough to turn a few heads. They came from a corner booth where a man in a custom suit lounged like he owned the room. To the glittering crowd under chandeliers and gold trim, the waitress carrying the tray was invisible, just part of the scenery. Her name was Anna Carter, but no one here bothered to learn it. To them, she was just another server in pressed black, her uniform a little faded, her ponytail plain, her face scrubbed of makeup or shine. The kind of beauty you only noticed if you weren't trying too hard to be noticed yourself. 10 minutes later, when 3 masked men stormed in with guns drawn and the crowd collapsed to the floor in screams, Anna didn't flinch. In under 20 seconds, she dropped them all. Her movements were clean, precise, less chaos, more choreography. The kind of skill you only got from years in uniform. The hedge fund titan at the mocking table watched, jaw slack, as the room fell into stunned silence. Anna Carter, 25 years old, steady eyes the color of deep wood, stood tall among the overturned chairs. She wasn't a celebrity, wasn't polished or curated for this world, but she had a way of moving that told you she belonged anywhere she chose. Licio wasn't just a restaurant. It was a monument to excess, crystal chandeliers glinting like icicles, the air spiced with truffle and imported wines, every corner filled with curated wealth. The people here didn't just eat. They displayed themselves, each laugh and glass clink a performance. Anna never fit the act. Her scuffed flats, her silence, her way of observing instead of performing, all marked her as the outsider. What nobody knew was she'd grown up among the elite, her family's name inked into the city skyline. But she'd walked away, chosen simplicity, anonymity, the grind. And here she was, serving those who thought she was beneath them. 7 months she'd worked here. The late-night shifts nobody wanted. She didn't gossip, didn't snap back when insulted, didn't stir up drama in the break room. She'd seen too much of the real world, war zones, not wine lists, to waste her breath on petty cruelty. But that night, the room was restless. The corner VIP table, always the loudest, was worse than usual. Richard Vance, hedge fund mogul in his 50s, silver hair slicked back, Rolex flashing in the candlelight, held court like a king. Beside him, his wife Candace in scarlet silk with a smile sharpened to a blade. Across from them, Derek, a tanned crypto trader grinning too wide, and his girlfriend Lauren, new money diamonds hanging heavy on her ears. They didn't just dine. They hunted, and Anna was the easiest prey. As she approached with a bottle of wine, Richard lifted his glass and squinted like a jeweler spotting a flaw. "You missed a smudge," he said with a smirk, tapping at nothing. "Guess housekeeping isn't part of your resume." The table erupted, Candace's laugh ringing loudest. Anna set the bottle down gently, the glass clinking faintly. "I'll bring you a fresh one," she said evenly, her eyes calm. She turned, but not before Lauren leaned toward Derek with a stage whisper. Probably the closest she's ever been to a place like this, unless she was scrubbing the kitchen floor. Anna didn't stiffen. She didn't break stride. Only her fingers pressed the edge of her tray a little tighter before she set it aside. Greg, the restaurant manager, intercepted her near the kitchen door. Thin, nervous, always shining with sweat, he whispered sharply, "Stay away from Colton's table. Don't breathe near him unless he waves you over. Last thing we need is you messing with our VIP." He jerked his chin toward the far corner where James Colton sat alone. 35, lean, dark hair, understated suit that screamed more money than Richard's Rolex ever could. His presence filled the room without him trying. He scrolled through his phone, disinterested, but when Anna glanced his way, his eyes lifted for just a beat. Anna nodded at Greg, her voice low and steady. Understood. She didn't argue. She never did. She just kept moving. Back at the bar, she paused, pulling a picture from her apron pocket. A sun-faded snapshot, her in dusty fatigues standing with fellow soldiers, the edges of the photo worn soft. For a moment her face shifted, memory flickering across it. Mike, the bartender, polishing a glass, caught the look. "Family?" he asked gently. Anna slid the photo back, her expression unreadable. "Something like that," she murmured and turned to refill a pitcher. The night was only just beginning, though the weight in the air suggested otherwise. Right, Mike let it go. Everyone did. Anna wasn't the type who invited curiosity, and most co-workers didn't bother to look deeper. But not all left her alone. Later that night, Jenna, the hostess 22, quick with sarcasm and quicker to flatter wealthy patrons, sidled up to Anna at the bar. She twirled a lock of hair, her grin sharp. "You should try smiling, Anna. You're killing the mood. Nobody wants doom served with their $500 entree." Her voice carried across tables, earning glances. Anna placed the pitcher down slowly, her posture calm. "I'm here to work, not entertain," she said evenly. Jenna's smirk sharpened. "Maybe if you put in a little effort, you wouldn't look like you wandered in from a shelter." A couple at a nearby booth snickered. Anna's hand lingered on the pitcher, a flicker of tension in her knuckles. Then she walked away, unshaken. "Hey, while the story's still building, pause for a second. Hit like, drop a comment about a time you were underestimated, and don't forget to subscribe." That's how we keep telling stories like Anna's. Now back to that night. The restaurant's hum of laughter and clinking glass shattered when the doors burst open. 3 masked men stormed in, boots pounding, rifles raised. "Down, everyone on the ground." Their leader roared, his voice rough from years of cigarettes. Chaos erupted. Crystal shattered, wine spilled across silk gowns. Diners dove under tables, crawling in fear. Richard Vance yanked his wife Candace beneath the table, his Rolex ripping the cloth as she shrieked and clutched her purse. Derek was already kneeling, babbling. "Take it all, just don't hurt us." Lauren sobbed beside him, mascara streaking down her cheeks. At his corner table, billionaire James Colton froze. His pale hands fumbled with his watch, already offering it up. And in the middle of it all, Anna. A tray of glasses balanced perfectly in her grip. She didn't scream. She didn't flinch. She counted them, 1, 2, 3, like assessing a battlefield. The scar-faced leader stormed toward her, barrel aimed at her chest. "What's wrong with you?" "Get down!" he barked. Guests whispered furiously. "She's insane. Why won't she move?" The leader shoved closer, steel pressed to her forehead. "On your knees now." At another table, a woman in velvet hissed to her husband, nails digging into his sleeve. "She's going to ruin this for us." "She's nobody," the man snapped. "She'll get us all shot." From beneath a table, Richard snarled, voice trembling but still dripping with contempt. "Don't be stupid. He'll kill you." Candace's panic turned vicious. "You'll get us all killed." Derek added, voice shaking. "Don't drag us down, you idiot." Lauren whimpered through tears. "She's nothing. Why's she acting like she matters?" Every frightened gaze turned on Anna, blaming her for not breaking. They didn't want courage. They wanted her small, afraid, obedient. Anna inhaled slowly, calm, measured. Her eyes locked on the leader. Then she moved. A sharp pivot, one hand snapping his wrist. Metal clattered to the floor. Her elbow struck his jaw. He collapsed instantly, the tray in her other hand. Steady. She set it neatly on a table as though clearing dishes. A collective gasp swept the room. The 2 remaining robbers froze, guns raised, confidence shaken. Anna straightened, her stance loose but ready, eyes fixed on them. Tony, the waiter who'd always treated her kindly, crawled from behind a chair, pale and shaking. "Anna, what are you doing?" She didn't answer. Her focus was locked forward. One robber cursed and lunged. Anna sidestepped, her hand snatching the barrel, twisting it down. The weapon fired, shattering a chandelier instead of flesh. In one motion, she drove her knee into his stomach, sending him sprawling. The gun slid across the floor. The last robber panicked, waving his rifle wildly at the guests. "Stay back or she dies," he shouted, but Anna was already moving. A swift kick knocked the rifle from his grip. She spun, striking his temple with precision. He crumpled unconscious beside his partner. Silence swallowed the room. Anna stood alone in the wreckage, calm, composed, untouched. The diners gaped, trembling in disbelief. Richard Vance peered out from under the table, his face pale, sneer gone. Candace clutched her pearls, speechless. Derek and Lauren froze, jaws slack, and James Colton, the billionaire, stared hardest of all. His expression unreadable. Shock, respect, maybe something more. Anna bent, collected the tray she'd set aside, and walked toward the bar. Not a word spoken, not a glance spared, just steady steps like nothing extraordinary had happened. The same woman they had mocked, dismissed as invisible, had saved them all. "Anna, stop!" Tony hissed, his voice cracking under pressure. Barely 20, With a nervous tick of tugging at his collar, he looked terrified. He had always been kind to her, splitting tips when no one else would, but now his hands were lifted as though begging. "Please, just get down." "You're not police." Nearby guests whispered their agreement, their panic feeding each other. "He's right," muttered a man in a tuxedo. "She's out of control." Anna's eyes flicked toward Tony, her expression unreadable before returning to the gunman. Her stillness wasn't arrogance, it was concentration. But to the room it looked like stubborn pride. Her mind slipped elsewhere, unbidden. Years ago on a sun-baked road in a war zone, diesel fumes and grit in the air. She was just 20 then. Rifle slung across her back, boots heavy in the dust. Children darted through the checkpoint calling for candy. She tossed a piece to a boy with a broken smile before her sergeant's bark pulled her back in line. That memory flared and vanished as quickly as it came. Now here in Lysiel, her body remembered what to do. The second robber, a jittery man with twitching fingers, shook himself from shock. Rage twisted his face as he charged. "You think you're some kind of hero, huh?" He snarled, his gun jerking wildly in his hands. His steps were uneven, sloppy. The guests didn't rally behind Anna. They turned against her. From behind a chair, Candace shrieked, her voice high and breaking. "She's going to get us killed!" Her fists clutched her purse as if it could save her. Greg, the manager, crimson-faced and trembling, barked from the floor. "Stand down, Anna. This isn't your fight." Derek, still prone on the carpet, spat through clenched teeth. "She's insane." Even Lauren, sobbing uncontrollably, managed a jab. "She's nobody. She's going to ruin us all." Anna ignored them. She ducked under the robber's wild swing, spun sharply, and drove her foot into his stomach. The force sent him crashing through a glass table, shards exploding across the room. Gasps and flinches rippled through the crowd. As the glass settled, a woman in gold silk, earrings swaying like chandeliers, rose shakily to her feet. Her voice dripped disdain. "Who does she think she is? Some kind of movie star?" Her words were sharp, designed to wound. Her husband, a heavy man with a Rolex gleaming, nodded tightly. "She's reckless. A waitress pretending she's a soldier." Anna's hand brushed the table where she'd earlier set her tray, her fingers grazing the wood. She didn't look back at them. But the hostility pressed on her like a wave, thick and poisonous. To them, she wasn't brave, she was out of place. The third robber was different. He didn't stumble or shout. He pulled a knife, its blade flashing beneath the chandelier, and crept toward her with steady malice. "You're dead," he growled, lunging low toward her ribs. Anna slid aside, her movements fluid, almost practiced. She caught his wrist, twisted until the knife flipped into her own hand and slammed him hard to the floor. His head struck with a dull crack. It was finished in less than half a minute. 3 men down, writhing or unconscious. The room hushed, the silence absolute. Anna stood tall above them, the knife dangling loose in her grip, her breath no heavier than before. Her gaze cut through the air like steel. Then an older man with a silver beard, his suit crumpled from crawling, pointed straight at her. His voice boomed across the quiet. "She's dangerous. You all saw her. Nobody normal moves like that." His wife, clinging to her diamond bracelet, nodded frantically. "She's not one of us. She could be with them." The accusation spread like smoke, sharp and ugly. Murmurs rose. Accusation layered on fear. Anna crouched, set the knife down gently on a nearby table. Every motion slow, deliberate, as if proving she wasn't a threat. But when her eyes lifted, they locked on the accuser. Just for a heartbeat. He wilted under her stare, retreating behind his own bluster. Minutes later, the police stormed in, boots pounding, radios hissing. They cuffed the groaning men, dragging them out. The chatter in the room rose, nervous and scattered. But the whispers about Anna didn't die. "Normal people don't fight like that," muttered a man in a pinstriped suit, his tie askew. Greg, wiping sweat from his brow, rounded on her, his voice sharp and accusing. "What the hell was that, Anna? What have you been hiding?" Candace, already fixing her hair in a broken mirror, added with venom. "She's trouble. I knew it the moment I saw her." Anna said nothing. She stood silent, her eyes steady, giving them nothing at all. Anna kept moving like nothing had changed, clearing glasses with steady hands and a blank expression. One of the responding officers, a grizzled man with a buzz cut and a scar carved across his cheek, froze mid-step when he caught sight of her. His radio lowered, his eyes widened in recognition. "My God, Sergeant Anna Carter." I thought you were gone. The words cut through the room like a blade. Every head turned. Anna gave the smallest nod, her voice calm but carrying. I just wanted a normal life. The officer blinked, then allowed a thin, almost reverent smile. Navy Special Forces. Counter-terrorism. You trained with my unit back in 18. You saved my hide in Kabul. The ripple through the guests was immediate. Richard's lips pressed into a tight line. Candace's eyes went wide. Derek stared at the floor. Lauren, who had mocked her earlier, fiddled nervously with her earrings, laughter long gone. Anna said nothing more. She didn't have to. As the police moved through the room, cuffing and hauling away the groaning robbers, a woman in a silk scarf crept closer, her hands trembling. She held out a napkin Anna had dropped in the chaos. You dropped this, she whispered. Her wide eyes weren't filled with judgment this time, but with awe. Anna accepted the crumpled cloth, her fingers brushing the woman's. Thanks, she murmured, slipping it back into her apron. It was the first real kindness of the night, small but heavy. Still, the judgment lingered in the corners of the room. A businessman at the far table leaned back, tie loosened, voice dripping with disdain. At the end of the day, she's just a waitress. No one's going to believe she saved us. Candace, fussing over the stains on her dress, chimed in quickly. She got lucky. That's all. A fluke. Richard nodded sharply. She's still nobody. Doesn't change a thing. They weren't just afraid, they were embarrassed. Admitting Anna had saved them meant admitting they'd been wrong about her. And people like them never admitted that. Anna heard every word, but her face didn't flicker. She kept working, stacking plates with the same steady rhythm as before. When Greg, the manager, finally pulled her aside, his face was red with rage. You could have gotten us sued, he snapped, hands flailing. You think you're some kind of vigilante? You're fired, Anna. Pack up and leave. The restaurant quieted again, waiting for her response. Anna set down the stack of plates, her movements slow, deliberate. She looked him dead in the eye. You sure about that? Greg faltered for half a heartbeat, his bravado cracking, but then he doubled down. You heard me out. Some guests smirked at the exchange, Richard among them, as if Anna's dismissal justified their contempt. Anna didn't argue. She simply picked up her tray and walked toward the back. Her silence echoed louder than any protest could, and that was when James Colton finally stood. The billionaire had been silent the entire ordeal, his eyes tracking Anna with unwavering attention. Now brushing dust from his suit, he strode forward. The room collectively held its breath. He stopped before her, his presence commanding. His voice was quiet, but every word carried. I don't see a waitress, he said. I see the only person in this room who kept her nerve. He extended his hand. Anna studied it, then looked up at him. Calm, steady. She took it with a firm grip. From today, Colton continued, raising his voice for all to hear, she's head of security for my corporation. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Richard's jaw fell open. Candace's glass slipped from her hand, shattering as wine spread across the floor. Derek flushed crimson and turned away. Just then, a young busboy, barely 18, who had hidden behind the bar during the chaos, stepped forward. His voice trembled, but he spoke up. I saw what you did, he told Anna, his face burning with awe. You saved us. All of us. Some guests shifted uncomfortably. Others glared at him for speaking the truth aloud. But Anna's gaze softened just for a moment. She nodded once. Just doing my job. The boy swallowed hard and stepped back, courage spent. But his words hung in the air like a crack in the room's hostility. The moment wouldn't last. By the next morning, headlines erupted. Billionaire appoints Waitress as head of security after robbery. Security footage from Lucille spread online like wildfire. Clips of Anna disarming the men in slow motion went viral. Her calm face against chaos replayed endlessly. Comment sections swelled. Some hailed her a hero. Others clung to doubt. But the truth was undeniable. Richard Vance's hedge fund took a blow when a viral post mocked his sneering cowardice during the attack. This guy mocked the woman who saved his life, the caption read, paired with his smug face frozen mid-sneer. Clients began pulling investments overnight. Candace's charity gala lost its headline sponsor after her condescending dollar store comment resurfaced, clipped and shared across every platform. The backlash was swift. Friends distanced themselves. Messages went unanswered. And 1 week later, Anna Carter walked into a boardroom for her first day as head of security. The room of executives in tailored suits fell silent as she entered. One of them, slick-haired with a polished smile, had been at Lucille that night. He shifted in his seat, suddenly aware that the woman he once dismissed now outranked him. The boardroom was silent when Anna walked in for the first time as head of security. Executives in crisp suits shifted in their seats, their polished confidence faltering. A man near the window, the same one who'd chuckled at Candace's cruel dollar store remark that night, now stood to pull out a chair for her. His hand trembled slightly as he forced a polite smile. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice smoother than before but tight with unease. "We're fortunate to have you here." Anna gave a single nod, sitting without ceremony. She didn't need to answer. On the corner of her desk sat a small frame, a creased photograph of herself in uniform. She didn't mention it. She never did. But the photo said enough. The ripple effect of that night was still spreading. Derek's crypto startup, once loud and arrogant, collapsed under the weight of its own bad press. A viral tweet cut deep. "Crypto bro mocked a Navy vet who saved his life. Investors, you okay with this?" His funding dried up. Calls went unanswered. His swagger vanished. Lauren, who'd giggled about Anna's shoes, tried to bury her shame behind a locked Instagram account. But screenshots lived forever, and her fashion snob comments became a meme, mocked across the same feeds she once craved attention from. Even Candace, once the queen of glittering galas, watched her empire crumble. Her sponsors disappeared overnight, one by one. Her name became a warning label, whispered in charity circles: toxic, untouchable, trouble. And Richard, the smug hedge fund manager, saw his empire tremble too. Clients fled after a post of his sneer went viral with the caption, "This is the man who mocked the woman who saved his life." He had no defense. Anna herself noticed little of it. She didn't chase headlines. She didn't care who was losing money, who was losing friends, who was losing face. Her world had shifted into something simpler. Her new job, her new routine, her old discipline. Her office was quiet, almost bare, except for that same photo in fatigues. She kept her silence like armor. She didn't need to post about it. Didn't need applause. Her work spoke for her. At a briefing one morning, a young aide lingered after the meeting. Her hands twisted nervously as she approached Anna. "I was there that night," she whispered, eyes down. "At Lucille. I didn't say anything then, but I saw how they treated you. I'm sorry." Anna studied her for a moment, her gaze unreadable. Then she gave a small nod. "It's done," she said gently, her voice calm but firm. The aide hesitated, then handed Anna a folded card with just 2 handwritten words. "Thank you." Anna slipped it into her pocket, alongside the photo she carried everywhere. From then on, things changed in ways no one could deny. In the office, voices lowered when Anna spoke. Her presence shifted the air. People deferred without realizing it. Her silence was no longer mistaken for weakness, it was authority. James Colton himself reinforced it with every nod, every word. He didn't treat her like an employee. He treated her like the spine of his empire. Years earlier, Anna had walked away from medals, from missions, from a life soaked in shadow. She'd wanted quiet, normalcy, to disappear into routine, but fate had dragged her back into the storm at Lucille that night. And she hadn't hesitated, because deep down this wasn't performance, it was who she was. Now, standing at her office window, the skyline stretching like a battlefield of glass and steel, Anna didn't feel victorious. She didn't feel like she'd won. She simply felt steady, herself, unmoved. One evening, as she left the building, a street vendor waved her down. "For you, miss," he said, holding up a simple bracelet strung with worn beads. His grin was wide, his voice kind. Anna paused. For a second she froze, memory pulling her back to a dusty market overseas, the same kind of trinket pressed into her palm by a child she'd never see again. She swallowed the weight of it, then reached for her wallet. "Keep the change," she said softly, slipping the bracelet into her pocket where it joined the photo and the card. 3 small things, 3 reminders. As she walked away, her steps steady and eyes forward, it wasn't just her story anymore. It was for everyone who's ever been dismissed, mocked, or told they weren't enough. For everyone who stood tall when the world tried to cut them down. You know that weight. You know that silence. And you know the strength it takes to keep going. This story is yours too. Where are you watching from? Leave your mark in the comments, and if you've carried that weight, walk with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and healing. Because you're not alone.